When billionaires fight, the consequences, it seems, could reach even space. Donald Trump has threatened to stop rocket launches, satellites, and electric car production in a very public spat with Elon Musk, who owns SpaceX and Tesla, among other things. Can he really do that? Would it really save money for the US? What about the long-term costs? Here's the breakdown. Let's assume President Trump is referring only to the operations of Elon Musk companies and not those of federal institutions like NASA. How much financial aid is the US government providing to SpaceX and Tesla? The answer, a significant amount if you consider economic incentives, tax breaks, and contracts. SpaceX has received tens of billions of dollars in federal funding over the last decade, including about $3.8 billion in fiscal year 2024 alone. Most of this funding comes from NASA, which has paid SpaceX billions to ferry astronauts and supplies to the International Space Station and awarded over $2 billion for developing lunar landers as part of the Artemis program. NASA's partnership with Musk ramped up during the Obama administration, which hired SpaceX and Boeing to build spacecraft to transport astronauts, aiming to end NASA's reliance on Russia following the end of the Space Shuttle program. In recent years, SpaceX has carried out several missions to and from the space station using its Dragon spacecraft. What would happen if SpaceX and NASA part ways? If SpaceX stops servicing NASA, the US would face a serious space access crisis, particularly for transporting astronauts to and from the International Space Station. SpaceX Crew Dragon is currently NASA's primary vehicle for ferrying astronauts to the ISS. Since the Demo 2 mission in 2020, SpaceX has launched more than 8 crewed missions under the Commercial Crew Program. So, what options would NASA have? SpaceX's closest competitor, Boeing's Starliner, is still in early stages. It just completed its first crewed flight in mid-2025 after years of delays. It lacks full NASA certification for long-term rotation missions. Its capacity is limited. The Starliner can carry only 2 to 4 astronauts per mission versus the Dragon's 4 to 7. Besides, Boeing's production and launch cadence is far slower than SpaceX's. What about Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin? Well, it's at least 3 to 5 years away from human orbital launches. Blue Origin doesn't have a crew-rated orbital capsule like SpaceX's Crew Dragon. The New Shepard only reaches approximately 100-kilometer altitude. That's the edge of space, which is not high enough for ISS, which is at an altitude of approximately 420 kilometers. What about a non-American option? Well, there's Russia's Soyuz. Before SpaceX, NASA bought seats on Russian Soyuz spacecraft at up to $90 million per seat. Political tensions post-Ukraine war have made this collaboration fragile. Even if Trump and Putin strike a deal, the US must also keep in mind that Russia plans to leave the ISS around 2028 to 2030. If both SpaceX and Boeing are unavailable or unreliable, NASA has no independent way to send crew to the ISS. US astronauts would have to wait for ISS rotation rides from international partners, if available. This would create an embarrassing space paralysis for the US and impact American space autonomy and national security. The Department of Defense has also awarded SpaceX hundreds of millions for launch services. SpaceX's Starlink division is poised to secure multi-billion-dollar contracts, such as upgrading the Federal Aviation Administration's air traffic control communication systems. What about Tesla? Indirectly, Tesla benefits from various federal and state programs. Tesla customers receive a $7,500 federal tax credit for electric vehicle purchases designed to boost EV sales. Tesla itself made nearly $2.8 billion in 2024 by selling regulatory credits to other automakers, helping those companies meet emissions regulations at minimal cost to Tesla. These credits are largely tied to state programs, especially in California. Tesla's solar power division also benefits from federal renewable energy tax credits. The company previously received a $465 million Department of Energy loan to boost electric car production, which it repaid years ago. So what's changed? President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill aims to reduce or eliminate some EV tax credits and also federal funding for charging infrastructure. This could in turn impact Tesla's incentives and customer benefits, which ultimately could impact its sales too. Musk says these provisions destroy millions of jobs and warns that they damage industries of the future. Trump's suggestion that DOGE should investigate the grants, subsidies, and contracts that Tesla and SpaceX get, that would impact profit margins at both these companies. One fallout would be less money for R&D, which is a major blow for any futuristic company. No wonder Elon Musk is fuming. But what about the cost to the US? The US government's investments in space, covering both civil, which is NASA, and defense, that's Space Force, have driven technological leadership, national security, and economic growth. Space assets are critical for communications, intelligence, navigation, and scientific advancement. The global government space budget reached $135 billion in 2024, which sounds like a lot, sure, but given that defense spending accounts for over half that amount, it reflects space's importance as a strategic domain. Reducing federal spending on space could lead to a slowdown in the commercial space sector. This would significantly impact national security and US leadership. And though cutting down on EV spending may not have the same consequences for national security, the US would lose the opportunity to lead a growing global industry while offsetting some environmental concerns. Cutting government spending on rocket launches, satellites, and electric car production could yield short-term budget savings, but at the risk of long-term economic, strategic, and technological disadvantages. The US would likely lose ground in critical industries, reduce job creation, and weaken its position in global markets and national security.